So we got a couple things to go through here. First off, I'll go through a quick high-level architecture update. And so this is what I call the level one, which is the highest level view of the architecture. And we've got our customers, our users who are enjoying the value, and they're going to be using our product through various clients. And the big pieces that they're going to be interacting with is the control plane management plane, which you can think of as kind of the brain of everything. And through that service, we'll coordinate tasks to say every hour, go check my competitor's website to see if they published a new blog, or maybe it's handle a file upload, various types of tasks. Those tasks may automatically schedule to ingest content, not only through something like a web scraper, but perhaps through Salesforce or some closed door SaaS product. And then the control plane management plane will also end up using various ML services, such as Claude or GPT-4 to do what we do. Now, as we drill down into how these services work, we'll take a slightly deeper look at the top layer here, which is how those users are going to derive value. Not only will people be able to use what we're building, but other computer systems too. So developers might be an audience for us in the future as we provide them with SDKs and other kind of machine interfaces. And so as you start to think about how can we provide great value using Alma, it's not just for people who might be interviewed on a web cast or something like that, but some service that a developer has built, we should think of as a potential customer of ours as well. Now, as we drill down, and this is be an update for those who have seen architecture about 2-3 weeks ago, there are a couple of different ways that I'm thinking about this. There's the management plane, which you could think of as, again, the brain, the control plane, and then the model plane. And then also our integration services, which could be, again, scraping content from a competitor's blog post or perhaps ingesting content from Salesforce or whatever we choose to do in the future. And so today, so far, I've spent most of my time working on this management plane, which again will be connected to the integration plane at some point in the future. This week, I start to switch over into the control plane, which is the thing that's actually going to be interacting and coordinating with the LLMs to go out and get these wonderful answers. Now, the model plane is going to have quite a bit of activity going through it. And so one of the first things, and this won't be in the initial MVP to be clear, but I want to let you all know kind of what the roadmap, the technical roadmap is ahead, that we'll have a multi-model planner. And so this multi-model planner, it will be an LLM itself, and it might come up with a couple of tasks to execute based on the prompt we are given. For example, if somebody is planning a webinar, it might create a webinar outline as the first task. And because we know that we're planning a webinar, the second task that we might come up with is that we want to create a 3-slide preview. And in order to create a 3-slide preview, we might need to go source their branded PowerPoint template. And we might want to then make some images using their brand colors. And so our multi-model planner will kind of take the intent that the user has given us, like come up with a webinar outline, and break it down into multiple tasks that we can go out and perform based on the user's preferences. And I'm going to come back. This is going to be an important point I'll come back to in a minute. Another component that we'll end up having is this LLM router, which will choose the best model based on the task. And so if it's a math problem, we might go to one model. If it's a content problem, another model. And we'll be factoring all sorts of things here, not just what we understand to be the best model, but maybe it's the best model for the circumstance, considering cost and all sorts of things. Then I expect that we're going to have a pipeline where we try to reduce noise that we're providing to the LLMs. Like, for example, if there's a bunch of ums, maybe we don't need to even send those tokens over to the LLM as a cost reduction. We'll have our LLM farm, which we're probably all familiar with, that there are lots of LLMs out there. And then in the end, we're going to have a feedback loop. If the user continues to, say, hit a thumbs down button, they're giving us a strong signal that they didn't like the input of that. And we can learn from that and maybe update our LLM router in the way that it's behaving. And so there'll be quite a few things here in the way that the architecture is outlined. Now, quickly, one of the other concepts I want to talk about is just kind of the data and the way that I'm thinking about data. And this is a copy and paste out of the source code. This is what every single API response is going to look like. And data T is like, it could be a user record or it could be a prompt. It could be whatever. The important thing here that I want to point out is this details. And that as we go through all of those activities that I just talked about, everything we do in the system is going to be represented by an operation. And every operation we perform is going to consume resources, which you might think of as cost us money. And so we'll be building this in such a way that we can kind of increment or accumulate the cost as every operation goes through. And so you might think of as somebody interacting with our service that they've sent us a prompt, and that prompt has to go over to the model planner, and the model planner has to come up with a plan, and then it gets routed and it goes through some pipeline, it goes to the farm. Finally, it goes back to the model planner because now the model planner needs to go get some images or whatever the task is, right? This is accumulating cost as we go through this. And so we'll actually be able to inspect that directly on the client. And I think we'll have some special tools that we don't even provide to the customers necessarily. So your transparency will be all geeky, if you will. But you might even imagine that there could be like a cent counter in the bottom of the UI if we choose to. And these will all be business decisions, whether or not we choose to offer like a pay per use model, or we just use this for our own optimizations and analytics. Every time that there's a hop in the system, right, we're going to be accumulating the cost, counting the cost, and measuring it. It won't be direct because the pricing changes all the time from the vendors and services we use, but we'll have our own kind of a scoring system. So if we say, gosh, we really need to, cut things back by 10%, where are the opportunities? The system will be telling us for every user, every operation. And we'll also be able to see like, maybe Burge is using the system a lot, but he's not actually costing us a lot. Maybe it's another user who's hardly using it at all, but they're hitting GPT-4 and they're overriding every time. We don't know. One last thing, as I try to go quick here, is just the data model itself. And so if we think about your user record that you're going to have in Alma, you're going to create that user. And I'm going to use the term user aggregate. And so when you create a user, that's an event that happens. And once you created that user, it has happened and it can never unhappen. Your user record was created. And then from that point, maybe you verify your email. And then maybe we, based on that email, we update a value score on this profile that we're building behind the scenes, because a Gmail user might not be valued by us as much as somebody who signs in with a PwC email address or some enterprise. And then they change their email, and maybe they go from Gmail to PwC, and they verify that. And so we update the value score again. Right, these are all kind of events that happen on a linear time frame. Some of these events are user triggered. Some of them are going to be system triggered, like updating the value score. The user will never know about the value score. It'll be something as a byproduct or a side effect of you having verified an email. But when all of these events happen together, at each one of these points, we create a new version of that user record, or again, what I'm going to say, the user aggregate. And this is really cool for a lot of reasons. Not only does it have a built-in audit log in the system itself, the system cannot work any other way than having an audit log. You can think of this like a bank account, your ledger, that you started a bank account with an initial amount, and then you deposited, you withdrew, you deposited, you withdrew, and it's the sum of those that tells you how much your current balance is. And so when we pull the authoritative record in the system, we're actually going to be pulling all of these events and folding over them. The technique is called a left fold. And we'll actually be playing the user created event, and then the verified event, and then the changed email event, and all those things to produce the user aggregate. And so when we need to pull the latest version of your record, we're actually going to be, much like your bank account, applying these and summing them, if you will, to get to the latest version. And what's neat about that is that not only does that allow us to go back on Monday morning and pull version 2 if we had a bug in the system over the weekend that we can't reproduce because the data's changed? We can pull version 2 of the record that was the right record that at the time the customer complained about the issue or whatever happened. But we can also reinterpret these, because when we save this event, what we're actually saving is that the user has updated their email to Gmail. Like, that's the version 1. And so we can reinterpret next time we fold over this or pull that record that maybe we're going to re-weight Gmail to be higher, because the weighting is kind of a side effect of the email change. It's not, but the fact that they verified Gmail happened and can never unhappen. But the way we interpret that event can always change. And that allows for some really awesome things without actually having to like do data migrations and stuff.
Mhm.
And so when we do reinterpret a value score, not only would we reinterpret it at version 2, but we would also reinterpret it at version 5 with the same update. And so it's a really cool technique that's going to allow us to have high data integrity, I would say.
Mhm.
Aaron,
Now,
one just quick thing to mention there. I put into chat a screenshot of Linear and how valuable it is to have that audit log. And you are mentioning that the whole system is being built this way, and the value to it's to us, but it's also to the users, and they're, us defaulting to transparency as a company value, as a core value, and being able to show users the way that they can trace back a lot of things to source and have almost like a provenance chain of value. That is an example of user facing value of what you're building, Aaron, that I'm really excited about.
yeah, absolutely. Now, in addition to folding over these events and kind of producing that audit log is just the way the system works, we'll also be creating a user snapshot, which is the typical model most systems have, where they're just kind of, you might have heard the word CRUD, where you create, update, read, or delete, where you're just kind of like stamping over the record. And so we're going to do that too, because that allows for efficient reads, joins, and all the things that you might want to do on a database. But this kind of folding over events is the authoritative resource.